Our next topic is planning of educational and cognitive activity. Plan of today's lecture is next. First point. Planning as a function of educational management. Second, the main documents that determine the effectiveness of educational activity planning. Third, the peculiarity of studies planning. Planning as a function of management is understood as a process of identifying ways and means of implementing the goals and tasks. Planning of educational activity is a targeted definition process of mutual actions of teachers and students to achieve the goals of their education and professional training. Planning is implemented at all levels of education activity management. Its quality and efficiency is determined by the system of documents. First group, it's regulatory and legal documents, then organizational and methodological documents, and educational and methodical documents. First group of documents, regulatory and legal documents. What do we have in our country? The main document is the Law of Ukraine on Higher Education. Then we have Law on Ukraine on Secondary Education. Then the National Strategy for the Development of Education in Ukraine for 2012-2021. Then State National Program Osvita of 21st century, and regulations on the organization of educational process in high school. The next group of documents, named organizational and methodological documents. We have educational and qualification characteristics of graduated specialists. Then, educational and professional program. Then, academic plan or syllabus. Then, working curriculum. Then, structurally logic schemes of academic disciplines study. The third group of documents, educational and methodical documents. We have subject qualification characteristics, then working training plans of academic disciplines, then educational and methodical complex of disciplines, then methodical recommendations for the discipline study, then text of lectures, presentations, then plans for preparation of seminars, practical and laboratory studies, then requirements to mastering the knowledge and skills of students, then assessments criteria of students, the last one, individual plan of lecturer. Educational and qualification characteristic. It's a state standard of education quality in chosen specialty and all its specializations. It identifies next points. First, professional appointment and conditions. Where, in what office, of using graduates, professionals. Second point, qualification requirements for specialists. We have to know what he must know, what should be able to do, with what must he be familiar, what qualities and abilities he must have. Third, requirements for quality certification to graduated specialist of educational institution. Educational and professional program. is a state normative document which determines the normative content of the education, set requirements for the content, scope and level of education and professional training specialists of specific classification level. It is used in developing of training programs and plans of academic disciplines, methods of diagnostics of quality education and training of specialists, training content as a basis for learning of new specialties and specializations, certification and attestation requirements of graduates. B. Educational and professional program establishes, first of all, the normative concept of education in higher education institutions, the volume and level of assimilation in the process of preparation of the expert in accordance with the requirements of educational and qualification characteristic, enumeration of regulatory academic disciplines, then recommended enumeration of selected disciplines, the last one, forms of state certification. Academic plan is a normative document that determines, first of all, the final workload of students, secondly, the schedule of their studying, thirdly, the name and amount of sample and normative disciplines. Thus, it establishes a list of subjects, that separation according to semesters, the total number of hours allocated to their assimilation. Academic plan in high school is formed on the basis of basic curriculum and consists of three main components. First of all, state component or educational constant. It's mandatory to study in all higher education institutes. Second, regional component. List of academic disciplines which are studied in particular region. Third, high school component. It takes into account the activities of university, its traditions and opportunities. Working curriculum. It is a main organizational and methodological document that determines the content and technology of training in a specific discipline, stating the topics submitted for lectures, seminars and workshops, questions for independent work, literature for studying, as well as the themes of abstracts, evaluation criteria and methods of control. For successful planning of studies, we must distinguish, first of all, goal, then content and logic presentation of scientific knowledge, then collection of factual material and examples, then questions and issues for discussion at the seminars and independent work for students, then objectives for the development of students' practical skills, then test and a list of questions for the intermediate and final control, then criteria for evaluating students' mastery of knowledge and skills, then particular audience, then conditions of learning process, requirements for the preparation of study plans. First of all, consideration of age, mental abilities of students. Then, efficient use of time. Also, we have to mention reliance on teaching and professional experience of lecturers and his/her pedagogical skills. And also compliance with such stages of lesson. First stage, we have organizational point. Next, definition of lesson goal. then implementation of lesson plan, then stimulating of discussion, then debriefing, evaluation, then assignment to the next lesson. Combined lesson consists of the following elements. The first element is organizational point. We have to discuss all organizational questions before starting. Then, definition of lesson goals. So we give an announce to the students what would we have in the result of our lesson. Then, updating of the basic concepts. We can make them actual to the nowadays, to the realistic life, and etc. Then, presentation of material. Presentation on your own point, but it must be interesting, of course, for all students. Then, fastening of material. Conclusions also must be with arguments. Then homework and control of assimilated material. When planning the lecture, we should take into account the requirements of the lecture. So, what are requirements of the lecture? First of all, the lecture must have scientific approach, using of the latest scientific achievements. Then, lecture must be logic, informational saturation. Then, a concrete historical approach to the disclosure of the theme or topic. Then, it's better than a student can hear a personal position of a lecturer, conclusiveness and validity, personal position. Then the unity of content and form. Then the lecture must have connection with the previous material. Then it must use problematic elements, because it is very interesting for a student or a pupil to hear about some realistic problem, some problem in what he or her can discuss possible solutions. Then, connection of theoretical material with a professional practice and functioning. Then, stimulation of active perception and mental activity of students. And at last, examples must be emotionality, convincing of justification and evidence. And remember the advice: never copy even the most brilliant teachers. Be yourself. That's it for this lecture. Thank you for your attention.